Welcome, Angela Clement, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking me, inviting me here. That's great.
No problem. I love to have different coaches of different walks in life come on Coaching in Session. I don't know if you tuned into any of the episodes or if you just know the mission here at Coaching in Session is that we bring on different coaches because everyone is going to be having a different walk in life. And not everyone, because I'm a mindset coach, not everyone's going to have a need for a mindset coach. Not everyone's going to have a need for a relationship coach. Think of it, they have a very good relationship. And the same thing is true in your work. You're a grief coach. And not everyone at every moment is going to need a grief coach, but at some point, everyone will experience grief. We might not be paying attention because we have the ones we love around us. Maybe we have lost someone and we have healed from that wound, but we go through it. In our world today, people are not told and taught how to grieve. They do it sometimes in a destructive way. I'm going to have a conversation with you today talking about all the different aspects of your work and how you help people. In your own words, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help?
My name is Angela Clement. I will start with I used to be a school principal. And
I work for you then.
yeah, yeah, I used to do that. And I was poised to retire. I only had a couple of years left. And my husband and I decided that we would both retire. He was a rancher, he had a cattle ranch. And so he sold the ranch, and we were ready, poised and ready to travel, to follow our kids, follow the grandkids, all the things that you do as retired people. And not so much, because in January of 2021, my husband was diagnosed with colon cancer. And then in October, he passed away. It really, and as people who are going through grief know, it changes your life, especially when you've got some kind of a loss as big as a spouse. From there, I decided to pursue an interest in energy healing. I'd had that for a while, and I took some classes. And one of the classes that I took was with Adrienne Blackwell, and she taught me how to do a summit. I started a grief summit. I interviewed 27 experts in grief. And through that experience, which I absolutely enjoyed and was so surprised at how much I enjoyed it, because I'm really not, even though I was a principal, I wasn't one of those extroverted type of people that would go seeking others to meet, right? And in doing that, I realized that it was really helping me a lot to learn more about grief and what I was going through. And it was helping for others to hear the stories of people who had been grieving and transformed their lives. And it led me to do three more. And so through that, I built a community, and I decided to take my grief certification from the lady who I was taking the program from. Here I am today. I'm still interviewing people in grief, learning their stories, and I now do one-on-one coaching as well as group support. So what I do.
One of the questions, and this might be a silly question, is when someone has gone through a loss. So like let's use the example of your husband. Typically that's information that a person will say, I'm sorry for your loss. Is there a better way to say that?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for your loss works for sure. It's when we try to say that we understand, or we try to make it better by saying that he's in a better place. There's all of those kinds of things that people who are in grief understand. It's really hard to take some of that. But being sorry for someone's loss, and just being with them and letting them know that you're there, is really all that is required. And so less is more sometimes when it comes to that.
Maybe like saying, I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's powerful, I think, because when someone tells me they lost someone, one of the first things that I think about is I'm sorry for your loss. And it's just one of those static things of, let's say, you wake up in the morning, you see your neighbor, good morning, how are you doing? Right? "Yeah, I'm good." So it's like a typical conversation. But in the moment, when someone's truly going through it, they need something more than just the blanket band-aid thing, the surface level thing. They need something deeper. And just the aspect of I'm here, I'm with you. That could be more meaningful than saying, well, I'm sorry for what had happened, because we are not told and taught how to grieve. It's just one of those things that, hey, we face it when we must. Why is it that we are not told or taught how to grieve? Because it's more of a cultural thing. Because if you look at ancient tribes, civilizations, certain places in Africa, they have a very different view of their deceased. Is not so much of attachment, it's about letting go and being free. Why is there that difference?
Yeah, I don't know why in our Western world we decided that grief was something that you didn't talk about, you didn't address. It was something you shoved underneath the rug and you kind of let people just figure it out on their own. Because, yes, you're right. In other cultures, it seems like they all have their process. They have that ceremony that they go through, they have time set aside for you to go through all the emotions that come with grief, and they embrace it. And I think that's part of my message, is that grief is really not something that we run from. It's something that it's a process that helps us heal. I see grief as a pathway to healing and to transformation. And so it's not something to run away from, it's something to embrace.
There is a process, I believe. And when we think about a process, we think of it as a step by step thing. So you do this thing first and you do this thing first. And in my coaching work, I mean, we have things that work like journaling, and we just, talk, and we have different tools to help us on our journey to progression. But there's no step one, step two, and everyone follows the same step because everyone's going to be in a different place. Do you find that in grief, people can be in a different place even if they start on, the day after, they're all the day after or maybe even the day of losing someone, and they're in a different place?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every journey is different. And some of us, we just survive. I think that happens to a lot of us, for the first while we're just trying to get out of bed, make sure that we get something to eat sometimes. Like, it's just rough. And that's what I tell people, is that's okay. For a time, the emotions are so strong. We just need to survive. And then there's this point, and it happens at different times for everyone, where we want to feel better. Just we start to look for, how can we help ourselves? How can we move to a place of happiness and joy again? And yeah, it happens at different times for everyone, and it happens in different sequences for everyone. It's just, there is no, and that's the frustrating part about grief, I think, is that there is no plan. It's not like we have step one, step two, step three, like you say. It doesn't work like that. And it's really an internal journey. And so you really have to be aware of what's happening inside of you in order to meet what your needs are.
I agree with the frustration part because even to some level, I can be frustrated with someone not recognizing my pain because maybe I lost someone very close to me, mom and dad, like just someone super close to me, like a life-changing moment. And maybe I have a sibling and it doesn't hit them the same. I can feel like this frustration that I'm feeling is almost like a betrayal, because you should be feeling the same way I'm feeling, or if not this, at least worse. Why is it so much of when we're going through these heavy emotions, we put a heavy focus on ourselves?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to the way that we were brought up. We were brought up to, we'll almost compete. We're comparing ourselves to one another. We're judging one another constantly. We're judging ourselves all the time. And one thing that I have learned through grief is that it's not something you do alone. You really need people around you. You need to find that support around you. And judging and comparing, it just doesn't work.
It's true though. Like we have this aspect of healing, and we need people in order to go through grief effectively. But there's a good portion of people who go through grief by themselves, and I'm going to raise my hand first. I'm one of them. I'm just that person that if I'm going through something, I'm going through it. It's my fight, it's my battle. And I know in my mind, and again, mindset and everything, that I don't do this by myself. Yet there's some battles that I choose willingly. Maybe it's my stubbornness within me that says that I'm going to fight this fight by myself. And it wasn't until when I went through my moments of grief in my life that I turned to mentors and other professionals that helped me through it. It was a interesting experience the first time because you're trying to find the way in the dark and you don't know what to do, and there's not materials. If you think about it, like if you go to school, like they don't teach you how to like do this. Like they might teach you like to eat vegetables and to work out a certain amount and get a certain amount of sun. But the moment something happens in your life, it's just like, good luck, figure it out. And that's typically where most people are. And it's not until they find themselves in a deeper, darker place because sometimes they fall into that box of, being by themselves where they start to neglect themselves. They don't get up and get the sun and take a shower and get the foods that they eat, that they need to eat, going to work or something. Maybe they want to forget the pain and become numb. So they maybe take some alcohol or some drugs or, things along those lines. That's going to be a slippery slope. Do you find that people will do that more readily to try to cover it up, the pain and the sorrow, rather than dealing with it?
Oh, absolutely. And there's good reason for that. It is painful. The first thing that happens is the emotions start to come up, and then we figure out, how can I get rid of this? Because I really don't want to feel this. This is, and those, what we call sometimes the dark nights of the soul, where all of those emotions are coming up and you feel like you're so alone and no one understands you, because really no one does. Nobody knows exactly what you're going through. I went through this myself. You get through that place where it's just like, what am I doing here? Why am I even here? Do I even want to live anymore? You get to that space. And that was where I realized I needed to start reaching out. And the interesting thing is that it doesn't take a lot it takes less than you think to turn your perception around. And for me, it was just a quote on Facebook that kind of gave me some hope. People will tell you that you grieve for a lifetime. I choose otherwise. I choose the path from hurt to hope to healing every day. It was by Julie Clough, who ended up being my coach. But that one message was the thing that turned around all of that. It's like you were talking about, spiral downward because your emotions get so heavy and so hard to take. And then, yes, you don't feel like eating. You don't feel like doing the things that you know are going to help you. You just go into this space of despair. And so just having that one message, and I think that's why it's so important we connect with others, is because that's where those messages come from. That's where the hope comes from, is the inspiration from other people. And it's hard because, like you, I thought too that I could manage this on my own and that I would rather grieve on my own. And it's a hard one. It's a tough one to do by yourself.
I want to talk about something that's going to be maybe individual to you, but it could be something that could be blanket to everybody, and that is death. Typically, people, they don't think about death, they don't talk about it, they don't want it, right? They fear it almost, so they choose to not pay attention to it. But then when they're at that door and they have no choice but to focus on it, focus on life, maybe, what is something that they can expect from the people around them to happen?
Are you talking about people who have?
Yeah, like what happens after death?
Yeah. Well, for me, and I think everybody has their own beliefs, but I believe my husband lives on. And I know that I've gotten enough messages and signs and had enough spiritual experience with his essence that I know that he's there, that he's helping me, that he's on this journey with me. We had a pact to work together. We were going to travel across Canada in a motorhome, and he always wanted to do that, and I always thought we could help other people, especially when he got sick. I said, well, when you get better, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go and we're going to help others, and I don't feel like that dream has died. I feel like he's doing it with me, just in another way. We're continuing to help people together. And I think the more that we strive for that connection and open ourselves to the fact that there could be another life on the other side of the veil, they say, then the more signs and synchronicities that happen that help us to understand that it could be true. And I get those every day.
There was a gentleman, his name is Keanu Reeves. I'm not sure if you saw the interview with him on Stephen Colbert, and he asked the same question, what happens when someone dies? And he thought about it for a minute, and he said that the ones who love us will miss us. And I found that to be so powerful. I was like, whoa, that's so true. Because when you lose someone, it's like you miss them. Like you want them back. You almost regret not taking more moments and paying attention. I know a common thread when people are going through loss, they get bad news from someone passing away. They say, I wish I talked to them more. I wish I was there more for them. And they have all of these regrets. They say that regrets are typically not in our life. They happen after. When someone is no longer around, we regret the moments that we never instilled. There is this idea that we will make some changes, right? Because now we have this wake up call. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be more present. But we fall back into our everyday life, our slump, if you will. And we forget that pledge of allegiance of making an effort to creating a connectiveness with the people around us. Why do you think that we have this moment of paying attention and of hope, making adjustments in a better future, so we don't have this regret again, but we fall back into our same style?
Because we're human.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. And, grief is in a way a gift, because every day since Blaine has died, I know how short life can be. And there's a piece of me that really wants to carry on some of the things that he loved and that were amazing about him, like his ability to just strike up a conversation with someone and just be so interested in their lives. And I think, some of what I'm doing is living with that. And every time I do an interview, I think of him, right? Yeah, we do get pulled back into that everyday life. I find with grief, it really was a wake up call. It really was a big one, and not one that I will forget easily.
I don't think we forget those moments. I think they're there. And I think we learn to manage them a little bit better as time goes on. Because I remember for me, I'm not sure, like if anyone or if everyone will resonate with this, is when I go through grief, the moment that happens is I feel anger. It's not sadness, it's like anger. It's just like, and I just don't know what to do with it. It's like, do you punch a wall? Do you go to the gym? It's like you have all of this momentum and it feels like you're stuck. Think of it like you're like in a car and you're revving, and you're ready to go, but like it's in park and you're not moving. How can we start to navigate those emotions and put them into a healthier place than just staying there?
We are taught not to be angry, right? It's not a good outlet. There are healthy ways to be angry. And I remember being very angry at my husband for leaving me. Angry because he left me with the seasonal camper. I had to winterize it by myself. Some of the craziest things, I was so angry at him for leaving me. And I mean, there's still moments where I think, why did you do that? But I think I've learned over time that when that anger comes up and any of those emotions come up, they have to be released. Otherwise, they just, and this is my background in energy healing, they're stored in your body. And so they start to manifest as physical pain. I do a lot of writing. I will write, but I will also go for walks. I will scream if I have to. I will cry. I will do whatever it takes to release that emotion. And I think everybody's different because we all have different creative outlets that some people like to exercise and release the energy by moving. Some people like to draw. Some people like to paint. Some people like to dance. But I think it's important that we express that in some way, shape, or form so that we can move the energy out so it doesn't cause physical symptoms.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you brought that up about the idea of energy and how we can release it in different avenues. So if you're a painter, if you are maybe a gym goer and you go to the gym, you do yoga, things along those lines. One of the things I think about when we have emotions and thoughts in our mind is very close to what the monks and the Buddhists believe is like we treat it as a leaf on the river, and the river is always moving. And sometimes we want to focus on that leaf. We wanted to say, I'm focusing on this leaf, I'm focusing on this moment. And they say, well, that moment has already gone. There's new leaves here, and we have these new moments. And we fail to pay attention. And I think one of the gifts of grief is that we can learn the two. And so it's kind of like the yin and the yang. It's like we can focus on, that moment, that grief, but then we can also move on to the next. And then the more you do it, I'm not saying it gets easier, but we become to manage it better. Think of it as if you start your own business. Maybe in the beginning of starting your business, you don't know how to do the books, accounting, stuff like that. Maybe you're not really good at creating websites or social media, but with time, you get better. You become more skilled. You become more, adept in it. And we learn ourselves better as we grow. However, not everyone takes this path of learning. Some people say, I'm going to stop learning once I'm out of high school. I mean, it can happen even before that, but high school is going to be our set point for at least today, where they say, I'm not going to do any more reading. I'm not going to do any more learning. And that becomes a detriment to themselves because they fail to learn about themselves. They fail to understand what makes them tick, what makes them who they are. And it makes them almost robotic in a sense because they just become this regimented individual. And the moment a wrench is thrown into their life, everything is thrown off of whack. Like their whole conveyor belt to how they were living is gone. And now they're just confused. They don't know where to begin. How do you help people begin?
For me, those things come up all the time. And I think they do for everyone else too. You have disappointments that come your way. And the first reaction for me is always, I want to either feel sorry for myself. Why did this happen to me? You think that there's the outside world's out to get you. All of these kinds of emotions and things come in first. And I like to allow that for a while. I think that our human selves need to acknowledge that those feelings are valid, especially when things happen. And then at some point, we have to think about, what's next. Because, like you say, the river's flowing. So you want to hang on here, or do you want to keep going with the river? And it's a lot easier to flow downstream than it is to hang on to the rock for however long. It's like acknowledging that those things happen. And I had a tough blow this morning, actually. And I was just thinking about it. I was really pouty about it. I've allowed that. I've allowed myself to be that way. And at the same time, I know that as I allow those feelings, they will pass. I will find my way through, find the next step. And even if I have to ask for help, which we find it hard to do that too, but even if I do, I'll be okay.
I love what you said for a while because it's one of the sayings that I know many people who follow mindfulness use. They say for a while. What does a while mean? Because it can mean anything. It can mean 5 minutes, it can mean 10 minutes, it can mean an hour. And it's flexible for a while. Because if I ever ask someone to sit with me for a while, it's until maybe we become uncomfortable or maybe we get hungry and we talked a good amount, and it feels good to leave. So it's one of those things, because one of the reasons I'm saying this is because people who listen, they like concrete sometimes. They want, how long should I feel this way? More so than be this way for a while. It's flexible, right? Because a while could be 3 months. A while can be a year. I mean, it's a long time, a year, but it's flexible because a moment for you is your moment. Think of it as a good moment in your life that happened. It could be any moment. For my mom, maybe it could have been, having her kids or seeing us graduate from kindergarten. It could be anything. And I'm certain she thinks about those moments more than, her life, her problems, her work, or whatever. She probably thinks about the good moments more so than everything that else is the noise. And she sits in those moments, I'm sure, for a while. And in a sense, we have that same ability to sit into the good moments. And even if we're in a moment where we might feel a plethora of emotions, we're angry, we're sad, we're confused, we're restless. We learn to pinpoint, okay, this is, how I'm feeling, and we get to now section it off, place it into our, I guess we can put it in boxes, we can put it areas and sections. I mean, we can be flexible with the term, but we go through those emotions rather than just let them ball up, ball up, ball up, because eventually if we just stay in that onion form, and we don't peel away everything that is going on, we begin to fall apart. Our health, we begin to, deteriorate. We got bags under our eyes. We have, moments where we feel fatigued and lethargic because we're not taking care of ourselves. And then one of the things I began to ask myself is, would that person want me to be this way? And typically the answer is no. I say, what can I do to carry on in their footsteps so I can carry on in their good name, to continue with all the things that they have instilled into me? Because if you lose someone that you truly love, I mean, they have that character that was instilled onto you. Grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, husband, wife, they become a part of you. They are a piece of that puzzle. And I mean, I'm not talking about the aspect of, once that piece is gone, it's just a hole in your life forever. We learn to appreciate that because we have learned to dwell within that person. And as you said early on, he's with you. He's not gone and he's forgotten. You have, I'm sure, his voice within you that is there, that is pushing you to be better, to help people also to go through these hard moments, because we can easily say, well, it happened, life happens, and kind of move on. For the people who truly love us, they're always going to be there, even if we don't see them every day, if we don't visit them, they're still within us. And I believe that too, because if we are just going to say that life is okay, you're just here in your physical body, and then all of a sudden, there's nothing else, then why are people enthusiastic about being better and enhancing their life? Because then we look at the means to the end. What is truly the end? Is everything forgotten? But there is meaning, meaning that is created. And one of the things I say is this: life has no meaning, but in life, you have the opportunity to create meaning. What is your definition on life's meaning?
Oh boy, that's a big one.
This will probably be the last question, guys. I know they're big ones.
Well, I think everybody's meaning is different, but we definitely are always striving to make meaning from everything that happens. And the way that we do that is by just feeling into our own passions and our own desires and our own joy. I will give an example. My husband loves steak. He would barbecue a steak. He would just love it. And he was a cattle rancher, so it makes sense. The first time I tried to barbecue a steak, it was devastating. I mean, I cried for the entire time, I guess, and it took a few times. But now when I cook a steak, it just feels so, I have so much gratitude and appreciation for what he enjoyed in life, the things that he loved, the people that he met, the sports that he participated in, the kids that he influenced. Like it was, he brought so much joy to all of those things. And so when I live my life now, I think about that. I think about what he loved. And I think about what I love, my legacy, what I like to do. And I think that over time, we build an appreciation for what we've been through, the challenges that we've had to meet, what we've learned through that, the people that we've met, the connections that we make, the difference we make in people's lives, the difference that they've made in our lives. And we learn and grow from that. And I really think we're here on this earth. That's what we're here for. We're here to be challenged and to learn and grow. And it helps us as spiritual beings, kind of like Earth School. Here we are. What would you like to learn? Yeah.
This one is definitely a silly question. Is we're experiencing all those emotions when you're grilling the steak the first times. Now you have learned to manage it. Has there ever been a time or a moment when you said, I don't want steak today because I don't want to go through these emotions right now?
Oh, yeah. There's been times where I've just wanted to avoid it completely. And I think it's in my nature to attack stuff like that. I'm maybe a little bit of a perfectionist or something along that line because even with grief, I felt like even though it could have devastated me and I could be still laying on the floor right now and crying over it, I wasn't going to do that. I just wasn't going to do that. And I think everybody comes to a point at some point, and it might be years down the road where you just don't want to feel like that anymore. You just don't want to be in that space. And it's like one step at a time. It's like one foot in front of the other. It's small baby steps towards finding out who you truly are, what your purpose in life is, what your meaning is. And everybody finds it in their own way.
And I do want to thank you, Angela, for opening up here and talking about your work. I always approach when I have a grief coach on because I believe you're like the third you had on in the whole span. We have like almost 500 episodes. So if you could think of it, it's not that many grief coaches, but all the episodes actually are different. If you're an audience member, you can go to all the individual grief coaches. They're all different. Like the conversation is totally different. And that's what I love about coaching in session is that you can find a coach that is going to, resonate with you. And you're just going to have this conversation and you feel so comfortable and you feel so at ease. And that is what I felt with you today, Angela. And I hope the audience feels the same way. As we begin to wrap up, can you give us some closing thoughts, some final words, and then tell the audience where they can find you?
Yeah. My big mission is to give people hope. It doesn't matter if you've been grieving for years and years or if you're just new and don't know where to turn. There is hope. There is hope and there's help out there. I didn't know that. This is my big mission to make sure that people know that you can heal, that you can live a life of joy and happiness again. It is very possible. And I believe it's possible for everyone. That's my big message. You can find me at healingenergy.world. That's my website, and all of my resources and information are there. Right now, I'm doing angel readings for people, and they're finding it really helpful and comforting to have messages from their angels on the other side directing them and guiding them. And it's just part of what I do now. And yeah, check that out. And I have my podcast. You can check that out and meditations and different things.
All right, easy enough. And I'm going to make it even easier. All the links are going to be in the description box below so people can easily check you out, learn more about what you're doing and how you're helping people, listen to your podcast. All of these things are going to help individuals, whether you are a veteran in grief or you're the new kid on the block. We are all going to be going through things differently in life. And we do have to give ourselves the aspect that we shouldn't be doing it alone. Even if you're like me and you want to do it and you want to fight the fight by yourself, don't. It's easier. It's to have a group, a community. It just be a single coach, that person that's going to look in you, helping you navigate all those emotions that you're feeling and putting them in the right places, because just kind of letting them go haywire every single day is going to cause mayhem. And if we can avoid that mayhem, life typically tends to be better. I do want to thank you so much, Angela, for coming on, again, spending some time and talking about your work.
Yeah, and thank you so much for what you do, because coaches are important, as you say. So thank you so much.
Very much. Thank you so much.